All right, today's lesson, lesson 7, is ordering integers and other rational numbers. So we're going to graph the number 7, it's that one, and its opposite on the number line. Opposite of 7 would be negative 7. I'm going to put an X where the opposite is. Graph the number 5. I'm going to put a dot there where 5 is, and its opposite, and the opposite would be negative 5. And put another X there. And let's take a look at this. B says, where does 7 lie in relation to 5 on the number line? Well, 7 is farther to the right. It's greater or bigger than 5, right? And where does the opposite of 7, that'd be negative 7, lie in relation to the opposite of 5? Well, that'd be negative 5. And that's farther to the left, or it would be less, right? So bigger, greater than, less than, smaller than, right? It says, I'm thinking of two numbers. D says, thinking of two numbers. The first number lies to the right of the second number on a number line. What can you say about the location of their opposites? So if we look at it, the first number lies to the right of the second number. So number 1, these are the example of 7 and 5. Number 1 lies to the right of number 2 on the number line. What can you say about the location of the opposites? Well, the opposite of 1 before was over here, and the opposite of 2 before was over here. So it's true that if you know any number that's a positive number, right, and its opposite, they'll be farther away from 0 for the bigger ones. So they'll be farther away from 0 for the opposites of the smaller ones. So what can you say about the location of the opposites? The opposite of 1 is farther left, or you could say smaller, than the opposite of number 2. The record low temperatures for a town in Maine are negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit for January and negative 19 degrees Fahrenheit for February. Order the numbers from least to greatest, so smallest to greatest. Explain how you have to have that order. It would be negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And then next would be negative 19 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's because when we have a negative, the bigger the number that's a negative, the smaller it is, because the farther away it is from 0, or the more you would have to add just to get back to 0. So that would be how you explain your order, right? Larger negative numbers are farther from 0. So that means that they're smaller. Or least. And as we look at this, it says for exercises 2 through 4, for each number problem, order the rational numbers from least to greatest. So again, we're going smallest to biggest, least to greatest. So smallest to biggest. All right. By first reading the problem, then drawing a number line, and finally explaining your answer. So John's time for running the mile in gym class is 9.2 minutes. Jackie's time is 9.18 minutes. Who ran the mile in less time? Who was faster, right? So here's our number line. Here's 8. Here's 9. And here's 10. Right. So 9.2. Right, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and 10. Right, so 9.2 is going to be right here as a dot. 9.2 is going to be right here. 9.18, well, this first number in front, the first tenth in the decimal is number 1 versus this tenth in the decimal is number 2. So we already know it's going to be, this one's going to be faster by just a hair. And if we look at it right, 9.2 can also be written as 9.20 with 2 decimals. And 9.18, now if we look at 9.20 versus 9.18, this one is the faster one. So if we're going from least to greatest, we would write it as 9.18. That's the smaller amount of the faster time. And then we would write it as 9.20 or 9.2. Number 3, Mrs. Rodriguez is a teacher at Westbury Middle School. She gives bonus points on tests for outstanding written answers and deducts points for answers that are not written correctly. She uses rational numbers to represent the points. She wrote the following on students' papers. Student A, negative 2 points. Student B, negative 2.5 points. Did student A or student B perform worse on the test? Well, thinking about it just a real world perspective, if you're losing 2 points versus you're losing 2.5 points, 2.5 points means you're losing 2 whole points, and then you're losing an additional half point or 0.5. So did student A or student B perform worse on the test? Student B performed worse. And that's because they lost more points. Lost more points because they had a bigger negative number. So if we're writing this again from least to greatest, least amount of points would be negative 2.5, and then the next least would be negative 2. And up here, I forgot to answer. It said, who ran the mile in less time? John's mile was 9.2. Jackie's is 9.18. Jackie ran the mile in less time. Or she ran it faster. We always want to make sure we go back and reread the question to be able to answer the question correctly. 4 says a carp is swimming approximately 8 1/4 feet beneath the water's surface, and a sunfish is swimming approximately 3 1/2 feet beneath the water's surface. Which fish is swimming farther beneath the water's surface? Well, the bigger the number you go, the farther you go down, right? So 8 1/4 feet beneath versus 3 1/2 feet beneath. The bigger number that's, and keep in mind water surface would be like our 0 point, so anything down here would be a negative, right? It would be a negative. So the farther we go down, the more that this is a negative number. So if we're writing it again from least to greatest, we should have negative 8 1/4 representing feet below, and then negative 3 1/2 feet representing feet below. Right, so those are my least to greatest. And then which fish is swimming farther beneath the water's surface? Farther down means a bigger negative number, right? The carp, swimming 8 1/4 feet, is swimming farther beneath the water surface, or farther beneath. In this second example here, it says Henry, Janin, and Clark are playing a card game. The object of the game is to finish with the most points. The scores at the end of the game are Henry has -7, Janin has 0, and Clark has -5. Who won the game? Who came in last place? Use a number line model and explain how you write your answer. So again, remember, the object of the game is to finish with the most points. So the most points is what we're looking for. I have a -7, and using a number line here, if here's my 0, I have -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5, -6, -7. Well, if you want the most points, the most out of these 3 is the 0. That's more than -5 and -7. 0 means you don't owe anybody anything, you don't have anything. -5 means you don't have anything, but you owe somebody $5 in this example. -7 means you don't have anything, you owe somebody $7. You owe somebody $7. So using this number model to represent this, who won the game? The person that had 0 did. So Janin won the game because they had the biggest point, right? Most points. Number 5 and 6. For each of these, order the rational numbers from least to greatest by first reading the problem, then drawing a number line, and finally explaining your answer. So same thing, least to greatest means we're going like that. Okay? So number 5 says Henry, Jan, and Clark are playing another round of the card game. Same people. Their scores, so same thing, right? We're looking for the highest score. Their scores this time are as follows. Clark is -1, Jan is -2, and Henry is -4. Who won? Who came in last place? And that's right. We need to also mention who came in last place. Last place would have been the farthest away from 0, -7. So Henry came in last place. And for this one, who won? Well, it's going to be the one closest to 0, so using our number line here, because all of them are negative. If that's my 0, that would be -1. That would be -2, -3, -4. The one closest to 0 is the -1, which is Clark. So Clark 1. And who came in last place? It was whoever had -4, which was Henry. Henry is last. 6 says, represent each of the following elevations using a rational number. Then order the numbers from least to greatest. So same thing. If we're going here from least to greatest, we're looking at doing one of these guys. So we first need to represent it using a rational number. So 120, Cayuga Lake is 122 meters above sea level. Above means that it should be a positive. So we're looking at a plus 122. Mount Marcy is 1,629 meters above sea level. So again, that should be another positive. And then New York Stock Exchange Vault is 15.24 meters below sea level. Below means it should be a negative. Then we're going to go from least to greatest. So when we order these, this is going to be first because that's least. So that'd be 1. Cayuga Lake is next because it's only in the hundreds positive. So that'd be a 2. And Mount Marcy is the tallest. That'd be a 3. So that'd be my order from least to greatest. 1, 2, 3. And the closing on this says, what is the value of each number and which is larger? Use your teacher's verbal clues and this number line to help determine which number is larger. So the numbers I'm going to use are 3, -5, -8, and 6. You can use this as a reminder, but if it says, what's the value of each number, which one's larger? So in this example, the largest one is going to be anything that's a positive, and it's going to be the biggest number that's a positive number. In this case, that's the number 6, and the number line here, that would tell me that's the biggest number. Right? The next biggest number is the next positive number, which would be a 3. We're now out of positive numbers, so we only have negatives left, right? So I've done this one. I've done this one. We only have negative numbers left, -5, -8. So now we're looking at which one is the closest to 0. Well, -5 is closer to 0 than -8. So -5 would be third and -8 would be fourth. So if we're listing this in order from least to greatest, then it would be 1 would be 8, 2 or -8, 2 would be -5, 3 would be a +3, and 4 would be my +6. And with that, we are off to problem set.